get going. So basically, we have a couple of nice things. There's a teleport into the brain behind me. I would say focus on my head and let me show you around a little bit. And as we go around, I'm going to be talking about it. So this teleport takes us right into the middle of the brain. That's a good, convenient place to land. And we also have this question and answer board where you can ask questions and put them into this white field, and then I will get them within a day, and I will post an answer over here, and we can see whether it's as accurate as Gemini or ChatGPT. And then on the screen here, the left-hand screen will be a representation of the brain area that we're going to see. So we're going to go up into the brain, and I'm going to show you the frontal cortex, the amygdala, the hippocampus, the visual cortex, and then each one has kind of a picture to show the idea of that area. So the prefrontal cortex is where we engage in complex interpersonal movements that are beyond the individual themselves, but in working with others, sort of like the murmurations of the starlings. And then on this screen is where I want to begin, because this is where I had sort of a eureka experience. I want you to just look at the left side of this slide, and we're going to come back to it at the end, because this is the current model that everybody is sort of using. In the middle, it says AI theory. And there's really just two components to everything that Sam Altman and Elon Musk think they're going to make. I mean, everyone buying NVIDIA stocks for this basic 1 and 2 points. One, that all neurons are interconnected, and that we do have 10 to the 15th synapses, that's true, and all of them are modifiable. Based on those two ideas, it's thought, if you go down that row, with that many flops, so a flop is an individual calculation. Computers now can make those individual calculations 10 to the 20th per second. So that seems like it should be enough to do anything, and yet it can't. They are invisible, and they don't make something visible. And in a sense, that problem from the invisible flops, massive computational model of brain, to a visible sensation, that is what is essentially what all this battle is about the mind-brain problem and how it works, and is it subcortical, or how does it work? So this is where I'm going to end up, back here, but now I want us to go up into the brain, and I think it's fun to fly up, but it's harder. So the easiest way to do it is to take the teleport behind me and just teleport yourself into the brain. But if you feel like it, fly up. The whole point is, this is an immersive space. This is why we have a Second Life, so we can do these things. These are the frontal lobes. They're at the very front of the brain. So walk with me. We're going to walk forward. There's another platform out in front. The front of the brain is motor, and the back of the brain, the back half of the brain, is sensory. So this is the motor pole. This is the very front of the brain. And so what goes on here is complex movement patterns. And they can get so complex to the point where we can have ballet and everything else. But that's where that's happening. That's not happening in the visual cortex. That's happening here in the prefrontal cortex. So now I want to walk back to the middle of the brain, show you some other structures. So you sort of got to find a spot around these. This is where the tours are. So this is what Fran was talking about earlier. So if you get up, climb onto this podium and have your settings right, and you can take the tour yourself. You can go through each of these different brain areas that I'm talking about now. Now the two structures that are highlighted in orange, those are the amygdala. They're kind of a round structure at the front of the temporal lobe, and they are subcortical. They're not actually cortical. It's archaeocortex. The amygdala recognize familiarity and danger. Now I am going to show you the basal ganglia. There's three parts of them, the putamen, the caudine, and the glottis pallidus. This is where addiction is. This is the motivation system. So this structure has not changed since the time we were dinosaurs. And basically its job is to move us, to make us say we should move toward food. We should try to seek out the things that our body needs. That's what this system does. In general, it works well unless you want something that's not in your interest, and that's what we call an addiction. You can get addicted to something that started out perhaps as a normal drive towards something, but then once you become addicted to it, then it's very hard to resist trying to move toward it, even when you try not to. And it also is associated with a horrendous feeling that I think people don't kind of focus on. But the feeling of craving is a terrible ache in the chest. It's the same sensation as being underwater and holding your breath and feeling like you're suffocating. It's a very unpleasant sensation.
Okay, this is probably a stupid question, but is that only with like chemical addictions, or does it work with like a gambling addiction and such as well?
All of them. Trump's addiction. Yeah, so we think mainly of the ones like fentanyl now, and also it changed over the years, hasn't it? So there were the opiates, and then amphetamines and cocaine. So now it's fentanyl, but you get the same sensation if you're abandoned at the altar. It's called romantic rejection, and it causes a terrible chest pain. It's the crural diaphragm. What's causing the sensation is spasming of the crural diaphragm. The crural diaphragm is the central part of the diaphragm that wraps around the bottom of the esophagus. The stomach does not have a sphincter at the top. It has the crural diaphragm, which tightens around the top of the stomach. That's what prevents food from coming back up again. And if that goes into a spasm, it's a very unpleasant kind of suffocating chest in your fist. Here's the hippocampus. So we've all kind of heard of the hippocampus. Look at how it's sort of surrounding us. Once again, it's a subcortical structure. It's not actually part of the cortex. It sort of surrounds the middle of the brain, the thalamus, which is where all the sensations from the body come up and then get relayed. And so we all think of this as the memory structure, but it's important to point out that it's memory of place. This is where the place cells are. This is where the vestibular system gives us information of not only where we are, but on what position we're in. So are we looking at the lake from the shore, or are we looking at the lake from a boat? Is the boat moving? Are we upside down? All this is managed by the hippocampus, but we do not remember in the hippocampus. Just the place, this location is remembered in the hippocampus. The actual memories of a visual scene is remembered in the visual cortex. And so now I want to show you some of the things that this can do. I want to show you what a seizure looks like. Because part of it's the fun of using a particle system. And so I'm trying to give you the idea of a seizure there. I'm going to do it again because it's sort of fun to do and spend some time working on this. But the idea that this showing it this way is that a seizure starts in a location and spreads across the brain in all directions. And so we did one with stroke, and here's stroke. I'll do that a couple of times too. It's on one side, and it's sort of meant to be showing that emboli are coming out of the heart and going up into the blood vessels and causing blocking the blood to the cortex and causing a stroke. All right, so now I want us to fly again. I want us to fly straight up to the top of the brain. The top of the brain is the motor strip, and I think it's valuable to sort of really get a feeling for what it's like, how it's really quite up there at the top. I have another platform. Oh, let's see. So it got dark. I'm going to try to get the light. Control our own lighting, don't we?
Yeah, I see it, I think. I'm on it,
Yeah.
I think.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, so flying seems to work well. I'm going to light up that structure. This is the motor strip. So this is Brodmann areas 4, 5, and 6, the top of the brain. These neurons go all the way to the spinal cord. So these neurons from these axons, the axons from these neurons, so the cell bodies are here in the cortex, and then their axons go down through the white matter, past the thalamus, past the brainstem, all the way down into the spinal cord. So the lumbar spinal cord is 2 meters away. Well, that's a very, very long axon. And then that axon, when it gets to the spinal cord, connects with one more axon that goes out to the muscle itself and causes the muscle to twitch. That's an acetylcholine one. That's why it's curare and atropine work, because they're blocking acetylcholine at the muscle. They're not doing it at the brain, they're doing it at the muscle. So I just think it's another really cool strip. If you looked at the drawing down on the main campus, you'd see a picture of the homunculus, that kind of famous picture everyone thinks about with the big mouth and the tiny hands and other parts. So where I'm standing, right at the midline, that's the hips, whereas on either side, both left and right, are the mouth and the tongue and the hands. So if you were staring at a target, this is how that target would spread out across your visual cortex. Now, if you're remembering something, then let's look what that would look like. So what I'm trying to show here is this is a snowy scene on a snowy road. So if you really look closely, you could really zero in and see that across this crumpling of the cortex, so you know the sulci and the gyri and how it all looks crumpled. It's only about 5 millimeters thick, but it's crumpled up all the way across the entire brain. That's what the cortex is. And so this is what that snowy scene is looking like, is activating on your cortex if you were remembering this scene. So the last one I showed you was looking at that target. In this one, it's remembering the scene. When you remember that scene, it's not activating the hippocampus. It's activating the original visual cortex that was activated at the time it was seen. That's where that memory was seen. So I want to go into more detail about that by going back down to the main screen and looking at that other slide. Okay. Let's go back down there. So crash yourselves. Jump off the edge. It's actually kind of fun.
Yeah. Oh dear. Ow, that hurt. My brain hurts!
Yeah? Any deaths? Okay, so we're back to this first slide. So on the left-hand side is sort of a diagram of the basic concept of the brain as a computer. It basically says every possible combination is possible. They're all interconnected, that they can learn by changing the weights of the synapses. And if you just change enough of them in the right way, you'll be able to get everything the brain can do. And I think that probably is going to be true in the sense that we can think of that as sort of the ultimate lookup table or the ultimate autocorrect table. But it still does leave the problem of how does that become sensed? How does that become not a number or a digit or a code, but actually something that is visible? A sensation is visible. And we know the rate of visible sensations is about 30 per second. That's the original movies were 30 hertz. So that's about 30 seconds per frame. If it's any slower than that, the wagon wheels of the wagon train go backwards. Nowadays, most video is shot at 60 hertz, but 30 hertz is enough. if you have a frame every 30 times per second, 30 milliseconds, you're going to see it. And so you can't see it at 10 to the 20th per second, but you can see it at 30. So that's been a mystery forever. So I now want to say, look, what's important is the anatomy. And so let's just not ignore the anatomy. So basically, it starts with the retina. The retina has rods and cones. There are 200,000 cones in the fovea, not that many. Then there are two other layers there, two other cells, and then there's the ganglion cell, and the ganglion cell sends its axon to the thalamus, and then one axon more to the cortex. So this is not a all interconnection, all possible modifications possible. This is a two synapse connection. This is just as short as the motor strip going to the muscle to make it twitch. That's the actual anatomy. So we have to understand how that works. So I now want to zero in on that spot. I've circled the spot up in the cortex, and the next slide is going to be zeroing in on that spot. Okay, so the left slide here is the actual microscopic vision of that cortex. So I think many are familiar with this idea of the 6-layered cortex. So that is what it looks like. These are basically the same pictures that were made by Ramon Cajal in the 1800s by hand ink drawings showing 6 layers. And it's been recognized for basically all the 100 years in layer 5, and some people call it layer 4, depending on whether they're focusing on the cell body or the dendrites. But layer 4 has layer 5 has the cell bodies of a very special cell. It's the pyramidal cell. It's the primary neuron in the cortex. It's where the thalamic relay lands.